stars rang, but my vision is...
Hey, what's up, y'all?
Hi, everyone.
I'm Jermaine Core,
And I'm Conscious Core.
and welcome to another episode of Core Values.
Every now and then, I hear about couples who've been married for like 30 and 40 years getting a divorce.
Yeah, and I think that something that we think about is whether or not they had a prenup in the contracts. No? You didn't think about that?
That is not what I think about.
I think about it. Because ultimately, that's a lot of years to be building with somebody to all of a sudden just call it quits or to split.
Did you think about getting a prenup?
I ain't have nothing to protect. I didn't think about getting the prenup. Did you think about getting the prenup?
I didn't think about getting a prenup because he doesn't have anything to protect.
But yeah, I mean, that's a interesting, I guess, crossroads that you face as a couple, whether or not to get a prenup. Because I believe by deciding to get a prenup, you're basically saying this might not last.
And if it doesn't last, you can't have none of my stuff.
Yeah, and it's like if that's
or you could only have half of my stuff.
And if that's the point, I mean, why get married in the first place?
That's what, you know what? Why get married in the first place? Before we got married, I was wondering why people got married. Because they always get divorced. They don't always get divorced. But it always seemed to end in divorce. And so the question was, why do people get married? Like, if you don't want to have premarital sex, so you get married, it's probably not gonna last. So, like, why get married? And I know that we got married because we believe like purpose was attached to it, but that's a legitimate question.
Yeah, and I would say to couples out there that are thinking about getting married just so that they can have sex, don't do it. Like, don't.
Our last video was like the sex.
Yeah.
What was the
does
question?
sex make it work? I mean, how does this work?
Yeah.
Does sex solve everything? No,
Yeah,
it's
it
not.
does not solve
I mean,
everything.
it's an important aspect of marriage, but ultimately, that can't be the end all be all. And on the topic of divorce, I guess we could throw sex in there as well.
People actually get divorced because they're not pleased sexually. So it is important.
But I feel like you could, if you're married, this is your best friend, you could work that out. You can,
Schedule sex.
or teach what you want to, make happen. I don't know, man. It's the Bible talks about the only context in which divorce is okay is infidelity or adultery. And even then, in that part in Matthew, I can't think of the scripture right now, but y'all know it. That part in Matthew where Jesus was like, divorce wasn't even in God's plan, but back then, Moses, incorporated it to please the people, and so not even divorce is one of those things where it was
never in the plan.
No, it was never in the plan.
Wow. I'm just like thinking about that. Divorce was never in the plan. When God, set the institution in motion to reflect his relationship with the bride.
And so now we got this thing called a prenup. It's like a legal procedure or a legal clause or something.
A legal what if.
Yeah. And it's like,
just in case.
How do we go from divorce not being into the plans to prenups being readily available?
Or how do we go from prenups to till death do us part?
Yeah, yeah, like I don't know. It's like contradictory.
Yeah.
I think about situations because I know a few people who got married and then got divorced and would seem better off because of it. I think about those situations in the context of God having somebody for them to marry, and they just, for some reason or another, married somebody else and it didn't work.
Yeah.
And so I get that scenario, but then there's just a whole bunch of principles in the Bible where it's like, nah, this is who you chose, so this is who you gotta rock with, unless there's infidelity. And
of course, I would also say unless your life is in danger. I mean, the Bible doesn't really reference that. It says that the husbands ought to love their wives and cherish them as their own body.
And then even on, I guess, the other side of the spectrum, there are relationships where the male is verbally abused or emotionally abused and just not respected. So, okay, it may not fall in the line of physical abuse, but it's still abuse. And I feel like that leads to divorce as well. But how do you feel about that? Is that okay? Divorce as a result of abuse.
I think that when it's not a matter of abuse and when it's not a matter of infidelity, or I say I think this, but I really don't know. I start to wonder, do people get divorced because of their expectations regarding marriage to begin with? Like, what did they expect marriage to be? And how long was it until they just decided that relationship wasn't what they expected their marriage to look like? And what happens when your marriage isn't what you expected it to be? Like, can you have those conversations? And if you can't have those conversations, is the first thing you say, I want a divorce, I'm not happy, I can't do this anymore?
I know me personally, being around divorced men, divorced women, and seeing its effects on them, and we could go across the board from mentally to emotionally to financially, spiritually. My perspective on divorce was like complete 100% no. It's a no-go. And if there was any chance of it, I wouldn't get married in the first place.
Right.
But isn't that everybody? Or isn't that the majority of us? No, I don't think anybody gets married with the intent, to get divorced. And so, what's the transition from 100%? Nah, that's definitely not going down. We're gonna rock. We're gonna ride this till the wheels fall off. We're gonna rock this till death do us part to. I'm not happy anymore, or this can't work anymore.
Yeah.
I know. Well, like, what's the transition? What's the breakdown? Yeah, what's the breakdown to that? What are the ins and outs of transitioning from completely against divorce to I can't continue like this?
And I know I've heard of stories where people start off completely 100% against divorce, and then it's like it's just not working out. And there is no real explanation. It's almost like the core understanding of why the marriage was or the union was made in the first place, it kind of dissolves, or it's no longer relevant. And I guess that's some of the things that you consider before you get married in the first place. Is something that you're getting married for going to dissolve? Is it not going to matter after a year? Is it not going to matter after 10 years? If you get married for kids, because you had kids, is that not going to be such a good reason after they're 18 and gone to college? I don't know. And if you go back and look at some of our core values videos, you'll see the beginning stages of us deciding to get married and everything that happened after we got married. But we are almost at a year. Next month is going to be a year. And to be completely honest, for people who are watching us make this decision, I'm sure it crossed their minds, like, can it last? Can it last even a year? Because there are people who get married and they're divorced, or the marriage is annulled. Because not so much time has even passed for it to be so set in stone that you have to get a divorce. And we hear about people who get married after a week or after a month, and they stay married until they die. So I honestly don't believe that time before you get married is what hurts a marriage so much. Time helps because you get to know a person, you know what you're getting yourself into. But what if you don't know what you're getting yourself into? And because you don't know what you're getting yourself into, does that mean that the relationship has to come to an end? The marriage has to come to an end?
We know that God is definitely for marriage.
Yeah.
And so in the event that you do get married, I would believe that God, regardless of what stipulation you got married under, I would believe that God would want it to last. I would believe that God would provide the grace to make it last.
And even as far as I'm concerned, not just last, but that it can be molded into an image that represents how God is steadfastly in covenant with us. And it's kind of hard to think about that if you're not really aware of the love that God has for you, or the covenant that he makes with his people. But even if it is a relationship where, you know, the reason for getting married wasn't something that can carry you until death do you part, I believe that marriage is supposed to mold us into the image of Christ, just like every other part of life.
God has a purpose for all of our lives. When a marriage is thrown into it that is contrary to his plan for our lives, or contrary to his purpose for our lives, divorce is a possibility.
It is a possibility.
You think about, you know, who God is, the nature of who God is, and how God is the most, the strongest force in the world. And then you think about us as mere humans trying to go against the grain, or trying to go against what he designed or what he put in motion. What does that look like? I mean, in most cases, it looks like absolute chaos. And I believe that divorce can result from that chaos. It's a very interesting dynamic to know that we serve a God who is all for marriage. But we also serve a God who's a jealous God. And when you get married under the conditions that doesn't please him, what does it look like?
So we don't have all the answers, especially now regarding divorce. Like, if you ask us, divorce isn't an option for us. But we would love to hear what you guys have to say about divorce. You can tag somebody who's been divorced, who has a great story attached to it, who might even have a testimony that comes from it, because, you know,
it would help.
Yeah.
I know there are tons, hundreds, thousands, even millions of people who would appreciate the wisdom, the knowledge, the experience that comes with couples who enter the marriage with the mindset that one divorce is a complete no-go, and then to end up in divorce as if it was the
only option.
Yeah. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Core Values.
Bye.